It's in MIT.
Yeah. Okay. So we are recording. Mostly we're just going to send out the link to people who couldn't make it for the info session. Because there are some complicated time zones at play. Cool. All right. I'll share my screen. We can start with this, and then we'll go to introductions. So I guess first, just welcome everyone. I think we're all very excited to be kicking off the next version of this. And this is now the third version, or the third sort of cohort of CV4ecology. And I think that one of the really fun things is that the Slack channel we've invited all of you to kind of is maintaining those previous cohorts as well. So we're going to be thinking about even connecting you directly with some like mentors in the previous cohorts as a way to just continue to make those connections and build the community. So I think the first thing here is I just wanted to introduce the leadership team and the folks who are going to be kind of making sure that everything goes smoothly. So myself and Pietro started this program a couple of years ago. I'm now an assistant professor at MIT in computer science, or specifically AI and decision making. And my work pretty broadly focuses on developing computer vision methods for these types of problems for ecology and biodiversity monitoring. And so I'm, very passionate about kind of increasing this type of interdisciplinary capacity in this area. It's one of the reasons I started the program. Pietro, do you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Yes, so I'm Pietro Perona. I'm a professor at Caltech. And just to give a complete Sarah's intro to the school, so welcome to the third edition of the school. And why did we organize the school in the first place? So we come from computer science, not from ecology. We come from ecology. We wanted to, so we come from computer vision, actually. And so we started off by collecting data sets of animals and plants because I wanted to test our algorithms to see how well they work. We had no idea that we were stepping into conservation and ecology.
Speak for yourself.
At some point, we started. Say it, Sarah. In your case, yes. So when it came, you wanted to do it, but I'm talking about the prehistory. And so at some point, so people like Sarah and Grant Van Horn showed up, and they really wanted to make a difference in conservation ecology, starting from computer vision. And we were lucky enough to get in touch with communities of conservationists and ecologists, most notably iNaturalist and Merlin Bird ID initially, and then others and others. And at some point, we decided that instead of helping them by building software for them, for the ecologists and the conservationists, which you are, the best thing was to teach conservation and ecologists how to use AI techniques for achieving their goals. And the goals are so different one from the other, and so interesting. And we just couldn't scale ourselves. So the way to scale is to teach. And that's why we're organizing the school. And we means 1% me, 99% Sarah, and I guess Eric now. So let me tell you right away that amongst all the possible schools, this is the best. It's fantastic because Sarah organizes it and she learns from each year how to make it better for the next year. And you've probably already gotten a sense of it in the process that selected you. And so today is a meeting to help you hit the ground running when you come to Caltech. And so it's a meeting to tell you what you need to study and to do before you come so that you're ready to receive all of our wisdom and contribute to the community, because already during the school, as you will see, you will be contributing and teaching us what you are doing, what you need, and you will be having discussions with other members of the school, and that will hopefully be useful to you and to them as well. And so I pass the baton to, I suppose, Eric, who wants to introduce himself.
Yeah, and just we're very excited to bring Eric on as another sort of member of like the directors, the leadership of the school. And Eric can introduce himself, but I think I'm really excited to have him on board.
Well, I'm very excited to be on board. So yeah, just briefly, I'm Eric Ornstein. I'm a senior scientist at the National Oceanography Center in the UK. I just started this position a couple of months ago. And I sort of sit research-wise at the intersection that this school tries to address or is working to address. And it's really something that I wish existed when I was first starting out in this world. So my background, at least initially, was in imaging and optical design, and I started getting into the software behind it and dug into the ecology and have since been working at this interface. I think there's a lot to do here, and there's a lot of really exciting projects that you all are bringing to the table. And we're really hoping to help you all get off the ground with some of this stuff, learn how to speak the language, and really figure out how to apply it to your own work, and then enable you to bring that to your colleagues at your home institutions and as you continue forward. So I yeah, I think I'll leave it there. I'm happy to talk about my research with people when we're actually there in California. And I'll pass it back to Sarah here. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay, so next I want to introduce Caroline Murphy. Raise your hand, Caroline. Say hi.
Hi, I'm here.
So Caroline is, we're incredibly lucky to have Caroline providing a lot of the administrative support for the school. So Caroline's the one who will help with kind of questions around travel, visas, like housing once you're actually here, kind of making sure everyone gets food, making sure we have rooms. So all of that stuff, it really would not be possible without her. And she's already, you know, for the last couple of years been amazing. And then Ksenia is, she's one of the directors of the Resnick Sustainability Institute at Caltech. And they've been the funders for the program for the last couple of years. And this is sort of the final year of funding from them. And so Xenia is also kind of going to be providing administrative support more from that side. And particularly in this case, there's going to be a new building that's opening up. And I think we're going to be very lucky to be some of the first folks that get to use that new sustainability building at Caltech. So I think the space will be quite nice this time. And then last but definitely not least, I want to introduce you. I want to have the different TAs and instructors who are here introduce themselves. I know not everyone could make it, but we're incredibly lucky to have this really diverse and really passionate group of people who have a lot of experience building computer vision models for these types of problems, who are, you know, senior PhD students, postdocs in computer science, many of them. And these guys are going to be serving as really direct mentors on your projects. And over the next sort of 6+ months until we actually start the program, being this direct point of contact to help you make sure that you're ready to hit the ground running, that your data is ready in particular, and that you kind of are up to kind of the task on the Python and the computer science side. I know some of you have a lot more experience, some of you have less, but giving you access to resources, kind of helping you self-assess and figure out how to get to the point where you're just ready to take advantage of it as much as possible. So maybe Bjorn, could you briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, I can go ahead. My name is Björn, and I'm currently a postdoc at MIT. I'm located here in Cambridge, Somerville, and I did my PhD in machine learning and Earth system modeling. So most of my work wraps around how to apply machine learning to climate models or to climate data. So as a natural extension of that, I have a lot of experience in remote sensing. So anybody of you dealing with remote sensing data, I'll be probably able to assist them. And then I also have some knowledge in generative vision modeling.
And then Suzanne isn't available right now, but Suzanne Stathatos is a member of Pietro's group at Caltech. And she has a lot of experience with detection and tracking in static sonar systems. And then Sam Lapp is also, I think, not able to join today. I think he's in the field right now. But he is a really fantastic expert in audio processing. He's the developer for the Open Soundscape platform. Justin Kay, also not available today, but Justin also has a lot of experience with detection and tracking. Shir Bar, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Chir. I am a senior PhD student at Tel Aviv University and the Inter-University Institute for Marine Sciences in Eilat. I'm mainly interested in applying computer vision to analysis of fish behavior, particularly rare behaviors. And I have two advisors, one from zoology and one from computer vision, who are amazing. And yeah, I'm really excited. This is my second year teaching this course, and I think it's going to be really, really fun. Can't wait to meet all of you guys.
Yeah. And actually sort of all of the instructors that we've introduced so far have taken part in at least 2, if not 3 of the CV4 ecology programs. And then Tarun also. Introduce yourself, Tarun.
Yep. Hi, I'm Tarun. I'm a PhD student at Caltech in the neuroscience program, but have kind of been working on computer vision before I came to Caltech, and heard about this community and wanted to be a part of it. So I mostly work on computer vision applied to insect behavior. So I was studying fruit flies, and now I'm studying ants in the field. And yeah, looking forward to learning from you guys about the stuff that you do.
Tarun also worked a bit, actually, Adam Bari, where while Eric was there, but not directly with Eric, on some species identification, particularly few shot species identification of underwater species. And then Tim Hawk is also going to be taking part, and he has a lot of experience, particularly in thinking about camera traps. He's one of the folks that instantiated a lot of the work incorporating monocular depth estimations, that you could actually do direct density estimation of populations and population change from camera trap data using computer vision. And then he also recently has been working with me a lot on re-identification problems. So we'll have some expertise on that front as well. And then finally, and the only sort of new TA this year is Peter Van Lunteren. Peter, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, my name is Peter, and I'll be a teaching assistant. It will be my first time. So I'm really excited about that. I have a background in ecology. So I started out as a field biologist, working a lot with the animals here in the Netherlands. I'm Dutch. And I gradually found out that I really liked Python scripting. So I started teaching myself Python, and eventually I started making, analyzing data sets. And now fast forward a few years later, and I'm working for an NGO called Smart Parks, where I mostly work with camera trap models for terrestrial mammals. And I guess that's it. I'm really excited to be a part of this team. Thanks.
On my side, I think it's really cool that we're starting to see more people who are not just coming from computer science, but actually people who are coming from more of the ecology side and have built up their own expertise in this area, because I think that context is really useful, just in terms of the shared experience of what that looks like and trying to build that community. Cool. So next, just as a first pass at trying to get you all to start get to know each other, I'm going to go through, and I'd like each of you to introduce yourself, talk about where you're from, sort of, where you're currently working, and then very briefly, maybe a couple sentences, introduce the problem that you're planning to work on while you're taking part in the program. So going from my top left, first, Guy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Guy from Tel Aviv University, from Yossi Velt Lab. My main passion is generally sensory ecology of insects. And I'll work on a project dealing with the whirling beetles, which are small beetles that live on the top of the water, and they create waves. And I want to track the waves, the small waves, the small eddies that they create, and the echoes of those waves, which reflects from objects on the top of the water.
Very, very cool. Matthias, Zur?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Matthias. I'm from Germany. I'm a PhD student in computer science in Nuremberg or Erlangen. I'm originally a physicist, but now, yeah, I'm focusing on ML-based behavior recognition and ML-based re-identification of animals. And my main focus now is trying to re-ID individual animals based on their movement, so based on videos. And yeah, that's probably also the question that I will be working on in Caltech, and we're working mainly with bear data, so polar bear data from zoos and grizzly data from the wild. And I can also share my project website with you. So yeah, happy to meet you all.
Cool. Brett?
Hi, everyone. I'm Brett Ford. I live in Ithaca, New York, but I'm working with Dr. Erica Barthelmess at St. Lawrence University in Northern New York. And what I'll be working on is learning how to process the thousands of camera trap images and acoustic monitoring sound files for a project based in Northern New York in the key region between the Algonquin and Adirondack National Parks, so that we can learn which devices are better at monitoring which species and how we can scale our efforts.
Awesome. Thomas, you let me know.
Yeah, Thomas is fine. Hi, my name is Thomas. I'm from Belgium, but I'm based at the Norwegian University of Life Sciences right now as a postdoc. And my background is quite similar to that of Peter. I'm more of a field biologist. I work on tropical rainforests, mostly on large vertebrates. And for this CV4ecology school, I want to build a sort of a basin-wide machine learning model for the identification of the most common large vertebrates that are living in the Amazon.
Awesome. Nina Ferrari?
Hi, I'm Nina Ferrari. I'm a PhD student from Oregon State University in the Forest Landscape Ecology Lab. And for this course, I'm hoping to make some progress on my PhD research, which uses bioacoustics to understand vertical space use of birds in old growth forests. So really fine spatial resolution of like localizing birds using multiple recording units.
Awesome. Talon?
Hi there. My name is Talon. I'm a graduate student at the University of Victoria in British Columbia, Canada. My background is actually in like water quality and cultural work here in BC as well as in Queensland, Australia. But also I'm an ecologist by trade. And my data set is a set of underwater diversity data looking to quantify the estimated abundance of gelatinous zooplankton and fish in a marine reserve to compare between the effects of seaweed farming, kelp forests, and just open water. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Braden?
Hello, I'm Braden DiMattei. I'm from Los Angeles. I am the data manager and lab manager for the Hampton Lab at Carnegie Science, which is based out of Caltech. So I'm very excited for my commute to be the same for this workshop. My background is in aquatic ecology. My academic background was marine. My professional background has been freshwater, but I've always just loved everything about data and data analysis. So I'm very excited to kind of hone in on that with computer vision. The project I'll be working on will be, that's Gizmo, that's my cat. One of my cats. My project will be trying to classify predator-prey interactions using the rotifer species Synchaeta tremula and the modal algal species Cryptomonas erosa.
Cool. Alexandra Giacomo?
Hi, I'm Alexandra. I'm currently in Monterey, California. I'm a PhD student at Stanford University. I'm broadly interested in combining biologging and remote sensing for marine predators. And I'm working on a project using drone imagery to extract morphometrics of white sharks to try to approximate energetic stores that power migration.
Awesome. Alice?
Hi, I'm Alice Michelle. I am currently in Davis, California. I'm a PhD student at UC Davis. I study intergroup interactions in gorillas, and so I've been collecting data on passive acoustic monitors in the Republic of Congo in a swamp forest and a community reserve. And the project that I'll be working on for CV4ecology is working on improving detection and classification methods to identify, well, to see if I can identify individual gorillas or at least the gorilla vocalizations in that data.
Sheila?
Yeah, hi, I'm Sheila Holmes, and I'm originally from Canada, but I now work in Sweden at the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences. But my work is based in Madagascar, and I look at sustainable development. And for this workshop, I'm going to be focusing on a collaborative effort with one of my students that we've been trying to identify various species in Madagascar rainforests and reforestation areas. And we've tried a few existing models and they haven't worked. So I'm really excited to try few-shot learning to see if we can identify particularly some of the more, the species without as many calls, without as much training data.
Awesome. Shannon Cressman?
Hi, I'm Shannon Cressman. I work for the United States Fish and Wildlife Services here in Wisconsin. I am a fisheries biologist. My background is marine, but my profession is freshwater sciences. I am looking to use and develop an AI program to help to age salmon and trout here in the Great Lakes for their management across, to have more consistency across states and tribes and federal agencies. So
Shannon has some very cool images of scales where you count the age based on like almost like tree rings. I'm not a fisheries ecologist, but I thought these were really cool looking.
But you got to see the pictures when we were at the geospatial conference. So yeah, scales and otoliths, fish otoliths have rings on like trees, and I'm hoping to use that as a pattern recognition for the AI program to help age fish. So we age about 3,500 aging structures between 3 different species in about 4 months. So having an AI program would be hopefully cut that down quite a bit.
Awesome. Mariam.
Hi, everyone. My name is Miriam, and I'm a 4th-year PhD student at UC Santa Cruz. I'll be working on detecting coral bleaching using remote sensing. And I have experience in remote sensing and GIS. And I'll be working on developing a machine learning model to identify healthy and bleached coral. Mostly looking at regions like the Florida Keys that experienced a mass bleaching event last year. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. And Rachel?
Hi, my name is Rachel, she, her, hers. I'm currently in Boulder at the University of Colorado, Boulder. Although I have a background in electrical engineering, I am really passionate about saving the world and all that jazz. And I also really love being outside and in the mountains. And the animal that I'm specifically studying is a pika, and I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with them, but they're very vocal. So I'm interested in using the very large amount of data that we've collected on their vocalizations and also camera trap data for individual identification as well as the study of hybridization and population health.
Awesome. Kevin?
Hey everybody, my name is Kevin Barnes. I'm a wildlife biologist for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I'm in Massachusetts, but I work remotely for the Mountain Prairie Division, which is the Dakotas down to Colorado. My background's avian ecology. I mostly do modeling and GIS support, develop decision support tools to prioritize landscapes for conservation. My interest in this, I might be an outlier here, is just land cover classification of specifically wetlands and flooded vegetation. We have developed a process for allocating migratory bird conservation funds for ducks in the Prairie Pothole joint venture, and hasn't been updated since the 80s, and it's a little clunky. So they've flown flights and taken aerial imageries of plots, and they've hand digitized wetlands. So we have a good catalog of classified imagery that I'd like to put into a deep learning model, and then see if we can apply that to Dove or Sentinel-2 remote sensing imagery.
Awesome. And then Brett, did you go already? I can't remember.
Yes, you already went.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. So I am really excited. I think it's always like one of my favorite sort of times of the year when we get to read all of the applications and see all of the different really amazing projects everyone's working on. And I also think it's been cool seeing the progression year to year of sort of the depth of engagement and the depth of understanding in the applications of what these types of techniques are, of how people might want to apply them. So I'm thrilled to have all of you here. It was a really competitive application process. So you should all, feel very sort of proud that you ended up in the sort of small cohort that we're able to accept each year. So I'm going to very briefly go through some of the logistics just to give you guys a sense of kind of what you're getting yourself into. And then at the end, we've sort of broken you down into subgroups based on similarity in methodology or data type. And I'm going to introduce those subgroups and then basically give you homework in terms of what you're going to do within that subgroup on Slack, following up, basically just starting that process of making sure that your project is well scoped and that your data is ready and that you have, the opportunity to brush up on any computer science skills so that by January, we're just super good to go. And this is based on experience. Every single year, we try so hard to help people get their data ready for machine learning. And every single year, there's some subset of people that show up and realize that they need to do a ton of data work the first week before they can actually start training machine learning models. But we are trying to get that number down to 0 this year. So we're hoping that everyone will show up and be ready to start training when we get there. Cool. So high level, just like a high level timeline over the next 6 months. So this summer, I know some people are planning to continue to collect some additional data this field season. With a grain of salt, that you have to have a really strong plan for how you're going to get that data labeled for it to be useful before you show up. But I think also using the summer to really focus on any additional data labeling that is needed, trying to think about, how you're going to be training and testing these models. Again, this will be, in both group discussion and with the sort of mentorship from the TAs, kind of helping you get everything set up. And then also working through resources, brushing up on any sort of Python, command line, these types of skills, GitHub. And we have some pointers for this that we'll send out. In the fall, I think the hope is that we'll be making final decisions around prototyping data sets. So thinking quite carefully about training and evaluation, and then making sure that the data is sort of processed into an accessible machine learning ready format. So we'll help you identify what that format might look like for different types of data, for different types of tasks, making sort of final decisions on splitting the data for training and evaluation, which ends up being often something that does end up being revisited, but hopefully we'll get close to final. The late December before we'll start, the hope will be that we'll basically have the compute resources you're planning to use lined up, and you'll be moving your data to those compute resources so that everything's kind of in an accessible location and it can be mounted to your GPUs. And then in January, we're actually going to have the program. And it's 3 weeks, it's pretty all hands on deck. I think one of the things that's really special about it is many people in a PhD, you're constantly context switching, doing a bunch of different things. And this is an opportunity to really just come, focus on one thing, make a ton of progress quickly. And I think the past cohorts will tell you that it's a fun experience. It's very intense, but luckily we're in LA and the weather's nice and we're all staying somewhere with a pool. So So the first thing, if you aren't already on there, you should have all got an invitation from Caroline, but make sure you join the Computer Vision for Ecology Slack. I know for the government employees, there's some restrictions around Slack use, so I think you just have to sign up with your personal email. We can talk about this. But this is the main mechanism that we communicate on, just so that things can be asynchronous, so we can have these subgroups. So it's pretty important that you get on there and you're sort of able to access it. So let us know if you have any issues, please reach out. You can email the CV4ecology email if there's any problems. I think there's some people who are going to be coming from abroad. So we can provide letters of invitation for students that need a visa, but we can't sponsor visas. It should basically, for most cases, this is something that you could come in on a tourist visa or because it's technically a workshop. But please email us if you have any questions about this. Again, it's just important that you have the right visa. So if you're not a US national, you can be a business visitor, but if you have a tourist visa already from like a Schengen state, then that's fine. Anyway, we just want to flag this earlier rather than later, just in case you're from a country that does need more processing time for visas, which I know we have at least one person coming from Africa who wasn't able to join today, but I think that we will have to work with them on trying to make sure that they get the visa in time. While we're actually at Caltech this summer, next winter, we're reserving accommodations within walking distance, and then students will be housed together with double occupancy. So if you have any reason why that's not something that will work for you, please let us know and we can try to accommodate that. But that's part of the way that we kind of keep the cost down for everyone. And then the housing will be from the Sunday before until the Saturday after. And so if you need if you need to add extra days onto that or for various reasons, of course, some of this probably people won't work out until later. But again, just any accommodation needs that you have, please let us know. And then we'll also collect some information to be matching you for roommates quite soon. And then while we're at the summer school or while we're at the workshop, we went from doing these in August and then realized it conflicted with a bunch of field seasons. So now we're doing it in January and everything just still says summer, but we'll just pretend it's summer in our heads. We'll basically everyone will get a card and we'll be eating at Caltech sort of with their standard meal plan. So you just basically get a budget for food and you swipe through. Almost every year we've had most people have had more money than they need on their food cards. But that's kind of like it's pretty straightforward. And then also, this probably won't happen for a while because, it's not until next January, but once you have booked our travel, please let us know the details. And then we can also help coordinate around like carpools to and from the airport. So please let us know if anything changes about your ability to attend. So if something comes up, for example, in the past, we had someone who ended up getting pregnant and couldn't actually travel because she was going to have a baby during the time the school was happening. Totally understandable, but let us know this as soon as you find out if something comes up because we have a waiting list. And so we want to make sure that we kind of give the opportunity to as many people as we can. If you're already in LA, I know we have at least one person and you're not planning to use the housing or the food or sort of either of the above, let us know sooner rather than later. If you have any accommodation or mobility needs, we're still planning out within the structure of the school. We have 3 weeks. Within each of those weeks, we basically are all hands on deck. And then we do have a day where we do sort of local field excursions around the LA area or sort of the Southern California area where we go visit projects that are actively using computer vision for ecological monitoring, which is quite cool. We're still planning those out. And I basically want to make sure that we're planning something that meets everyone's mobility needs. So I won't plan super intense, like hiking out into the field if there are people, but that'll be restrictive. So let me know ahead of time. And then if you need any advice about LA, you can ask us, or apparently you can also ask Braden. Cool. So that's sort of all the logistics in general. At a very high level, the structure of the school, you can sort of see the sample schedules and stuff from previous years. But basically the way it's structured is for each of these 3 weeks, every morning we have lectures from basically the TAs and the instructors that are covering sort of different technical components. And then we'll have sometimes invited speakers as well. We do reading groups, which is basically just helping to build up that skill set in terms of like how to critically and responsibly read machine learning literature. and figure out when it makes sense to actually try to investigate or apply something that you read. And then in the afternoons, it's somewhat structured co-work time within your subgroups. And this is essentially intending to give you this really fast ability to get unstuck. So you're actively, pair programming, working with your mentors, writing your own code within subgroups that are working on similar sort of problems or similar types of data so that you can share resources as needed. And we're hoping that each of these subgroups can plan out on Slack when you can have sort of an initial meeting. And in the past, some subgroups, depending on time zones and everything, have been able to have sort of separate meetings together. Some of them are just checking in asynchronously. Some have one-on-one meetings with their mentors, whatever works for you. But the first thing is making sure everyone can get on Slack, making a group Slack channel, and I'll sort of ask the TAs to sort of help with that, and then schedule initial meetings. And within those initial meetings, we're hoping that everyone can give an overview of their current data status, if they're still planning to collect data, or sort of what's their planned to-dos around their data, and then a bit of a self-assessment of Python readiness, so we can try to help you fill any gaps you might have in your sort of programming, GitHub, command line, like remote infrastructure, all of these types of skills that end up being important for computer vision. So these are the rough assignments of working groups. So I hope all of you can kind of find and self-identify at sort of a very high level. This first group has a lot of people working on audio or different sort of types of audio type of data. The second group has a lot of people working with static sensors, whether it's camera traps or sort of video from camera traps. And sort of temporal problems in general, things that actually have video with the spatial structure. This third group is a lot of people working with more geospatial or remote sensing data. And then the fourth group has more, I think, camera traps and re-ID problems at a very high level. And, if we identify that actually one of you maybe fits better in a different group, or there's sort of some cross connections across groups, that's also totally fine. Great. So we will kind of follow up, I guess, after this on Slack. But before we go, if anyone has questions for us about sort of the next 6 months before we're actually at Caltech in person, I think now's a great time to ask.
Yeah, no question is silly. Just ask what is on your mind, and other people will be happy you ask that question.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. About the visa, because I didn't really understand. Did you say that a tourist visa was sufficient, or does it depend on which country you're coming from?
It kind of depends on which country you're coming from, I think. But I think if you're coming from a Schengen country and you have an existing tourist visa, or you can come in on sort of the supported tourist visa, that's what people have done in the past, and that's fine. Yeah.
It's usually ETSA. So that's most. We're not paying anybody anything, so that makes it a little easier. Basically, it's whatever visa you would use if you're going to a conference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, so I have maybe a follow-up question to that, because I will be staying at the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance 3 months before that. So is it still like then in total 4 months meaningful to have a business visitor visa, or is it then differently? Or?
I think as long as you're not supposed to, like, your visa, like if you're in the country already and it's not ended, we're not. You would really need a business visa if we were paying you or reimbursing you, and since we're not doing that, I wouldn't worry too much.
But I think if you're going to be there from before and then it's extending, we can follow up and sort of check and see. But hopefully, I think that should still be within the time that's allowed for a tourist visa from Europe at least. But yeah. I'm also not like an expert on all international foreign visas. It's just flagging that this is something that you should totally plan out and check now, because it takes a long time sometimes to get
Right,
visas.
right. Especially if you're not in the Europe or whatever the countries that do the ETSA. So
Yeah,
it's electronic.
we did have, and this is super unfortunate, it was just sort of out of everyone's hands, but we had a student in one of the past years who was coming from India who ended up not being able to get a visa in time because the Indian government had just gotten so backlogged from COVID. And that's one of the reasons that we're being sort of so cautious about this, is just like trying to hopefully streamline that process and avoid that happening again.
Okay, and I have a second question regarding the data, because I'm working with video data, which is naturally quite a lot. Yeah, quite. So is there any like restrictions to data set size, and do we train on our machines, or do you offer some sort of like GPU cluster, or what? How does it work?
Yeah, so we're still figuring out exactly what the compute situation will be this time. The first time around, we got provided GPU support on the cloud from a couple different companies. The second time, we worked directly with a nonprofit called Eluther AI, and they provided essentially a 5,000 for each student, but basically a dedicated GPU. And then this time we're actually working with Easel, and we're looking at leveraging Cyverse infrastructure. So the NSF GPU infrastructure. One of the reasons to push towards that is because that does actually, even for international people, there's this potential for extended use of that. You can submit these grants directly. So one of the things that's really tough is for some people, if they come, they have access to a GPU, they can do a lot, and then they leave, and we don't sort of provide GPU access forever. Then you end up sort of having this skill set, but not necessarily, depending on your own resources back home, having the ability to continue to do it. So we've been looking at different solutions. So we're in the process of figuring that out. We'll let you know as we sort of figure it out. But the idea is that we provide some GPU support. Now, of course, what we can't do is provide 5 H100s per person. So one of the things that we really will be working with you on as we're getting close to the school is thinking about how to be strategic about your prototyping data set. And I think this is good machine learning sort of skill set anyway. Like, how do you find sort of the right subset of your data that you can quickly iterate on so that you're not waiting, a week or something in between getting results so that we can make quick progress while we're there. And that might mean that then whatever we decide or sort of what we learn ends up then being later scaled up to your entire data set. So particularly with video, I mean, I imagine you have tons of video, but there's probably only a subset of that video that maybe has coverage over the different behaviors of the different individuals you're interested in. And so thinking about that quite carefully. And also, particularly for video problems, identifying whether it's truly a video problem or whether it's actually a frame-wise problem is another thing we'll talk about.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question for Matthias. How many guitars are you going to bring over?
Well, at least one, because otherwise I won't be able to get through the weeks.
Okay. So we'll provide opportunity for a little concert. I think that's going to be really, really cool. And I think Rachel has a question about how many bicycles she can bring over. And yes, you may bring your bicycle. Pasadena is fantastic for biking, so we have mountains just nearby.
Pietro drives a motorcycle and will...
I ride a motorcycle, but I can be convinced to bike also. So. Okay, so let me call out a few names because some people will not ask questions they have in mind. Braden, do you have any questions?
Not at the moment.
No. Alice, do you have any question?
Not right now, no, but thank you.
No, you're good. Nina? No, okay. I struck out 3 times.
I have a question, so you don't have to call my name.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about the Python readiness. Since there have been a few years already, I was wondering if people have resources already that they found useful to train for the course.
Yes, exactly. And we've been, every year we try to get sort of better and better at pointing people to the right resources. I think we've definitely learned a few things. So one thing is Python syntax. Like a lot of online resources give you access to Python syntax, but they don't necessarily give you access to skill building around Python scripting, particularly the types of scripting that you would then launch, on some sort of remote machine, as opposed to directly working like on something like a Jupyter notebook. And so we also have a few like homework 0 type assignments that are more like guidelines around working with your own data and sort of writing out some initial scripts and stuff that you can try to actually then run more like from a command line standpoint than through something like Colab or Jupyter Notebooks. For some of you, I think you already have a lot of this experience, but basically when you're training remote jobs, it's often, there are ways to work around it with more like a notebook structure. And that's often something that feels more familiar, particularly if you're coming from an R background, because it has this kind of cell-wise operation, and because you're doing a little bit less of like developing your own environment and installing all the packages. But we think that that type of skill building actually is very important for this type of work. So we definitely do have resources. We're also constantly looking for better resources because I think all of them are sort of imperfect in different ways. But what we do, and we will do sort of starting maybe in a month or two, is we'll hold every other week, we'll hold what are called Python office hours. Basically just open office hours where the different TAs sign up. And the idea is you can show up, and if you're still definitely working out details on Python, or you even have just questions about your project or questions about the data, that you can join and ask those questions and sort of get unstuck and get pointers to the right resources and sort of pair debug. Which is the hope that, I think, so one thing that's definitely been true in the past is that people who put in the work or who already have experience with Python make much faster progress while they're at the school. And so the more that you can kind of set yourself up with that, the more successful you're going to be, I think. And it's not that it's not possible to make progress without it, but it just slows you down a lot if you're sort of trying to learn Python while you're trying to learn the computer vision. So we really are very happy to try to help you get there ahead of time, because we think it'll help you make the best use of the time.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
And yeah, I think on Slack we'll follow up and there's sort of some existing resources there already. I think also on the web page we have an FAQ with some suggested resources, but that probably needs to be updated. The most recent one I really like is there's a data carpentries that's specifically aimed for ecologists that's teaching some Python skills, which is cool. Any other questions?
Yeah, well, I wonder about how much we should use ChatGPT, Copilot, such tools during this period or during the workshop.
Yeah, I think this is a great question as someone who's like now teaching, just started this year teaching computer science to students. I think it's kind of this open question. So I can speak from the experience of last time we ran the school, where these tools were all very much already in existence. For people who already have a good sense of what it means to write Python code and to test Python code, they're amazing efficiency tools. But sometimes they are wrong in really insidious ways. And if you're not good at debugging Python code, which is often not the case if you're not good at writing Python code, then they can be wrong in ways that are very difficult to find. So I guess like they can help you be efficient, but then the kind of horror story version of that is we've had a couple cases, and I've definitely seen this with my students now at MIT, where you use Copilot to help you write something and it's doing something sort of insidiously incorrect that it's very difficult for you to find because you don't have as much skill in actually debugging the code. So totally fine with me for you to use those tools, but I guess as you're using them, trying to make sure that you're thinking about how to test them or how to debug so that you're still building the skill set so that you're not kind of setting yourself up to then spend a bunch of time trying to find the error that was introduced by Copilot as opposed to just writing it from yourself from scratch, probably in less time. We also spend a lot of time in the program, and I think this is actually just the way that people do machine learning, basically figuring out how to find the right open source code bases that people have already developed and have already vetted, and then adapt those. So kind of thinking about how to read into PyTorch code and think about how to make changes to existing code, which I think is pretty well aligned with the way people do computer vision research. You're not going to write like a new, machine learning architecture from scratch, probably, and probably you shouldn't be. Cool. Rachel.
Yeah, I just had to chime in about ChatGPT as somebody who does know Python pretty well. It's so dangerous because you'll be writing a function and you'll be like, I don't really want to do this. This is tedious. You pop it into ChatGPT, you get it back, and then you've built up like 200 lines of code using mostly ChatGPT, and then there'll be like some insidious error or something, and then you have to go back and debug it step by step, and it's even worse because you didn't write it like from scratch originally, and it has its uses. I just feel like it's dangerous to rely on it too much. It just winds up being way more frustrating. But yeah, sorry, my actual question was if we're in the US, like when's a good time to book air travel to California?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know. Use your best judgment. I guess it depends where you're flying from. And so one thing I will say, if you have the opportunity and it's not way more expensive, we strongly recommend you fly into Burbank instead of LAX, because it is much more convenient. LAX is like basically 2 hours away from Pasadena. It's really, LA is the size of the Netherlands, Peter. So just for context, LAX is very far from Caltech. Yeah, Nina?
If we were to drive, would there be like a place available to park? Would we be expected to pay for parking for the entirety?
You can park in the garage at Caltech. I think that I think you would have to pay for parking. That's not something that we just sort of innately cover. But I don't think it's crazy expensive. We definitely have had people from previous cohorts who drove, and we can connect you with them on Slack. You can talk to them about the pros and cons.
And at the hotel, parking is free. You don't have to pay for park there. There's plenty of parking.
So as long as you're not like leaving your car on campus, you just can leave it at the hotel and walk to campus. It's pretty easy. Yeah. It is nice to have a car. If a couple people have cars, it ends up being cool because then they end up the people who did have cars last time ended up, being chauffeurs for different hiking trips or whatever that people planned. So I think it's nice to have. Yeah, cool. Any other logistical questions or sort of technical questions? Awesome. Okay, I'm so excited. I'm really looking forward to this. They've been some of the funnest sort of sets of 3 weeks of my last couple of years. I think all the TAs can vouch that it's intense. Everybody works super hard. For better or worse, something about the constrained time period, like people, you have to kind of learn to set your own boundaries, because there are going to be some people who are just working nonstop. Like, will work all day and then you'll go eat dinner and then they'll go back to the hotel and sit by the pool, and there'd be people programming by the pool until midnight. So it's fun. Figure out what works for you in terms of the intensity, but also like, we definitely have folks from past cohorts who said that they made more progress on their research during these 3 weeks than they made in like the 3 years before in their PhD. So we're gonna get a lot done, which is awesome. Okay. We'll see you on Slack, and we're really looking forward to it. And congratulations again, and super excited to have you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.